Chapter 10. Throwing the Hammer. The nice thing about Matilda was that if you met her casually and talked to her, you would have thought she was a perfectly normal 5.5-year-old child. She displayed almost no outward signs of her brilliance, and she never showed off. This is a very sensible and quiet little girl, you'd have said to yourself. And unless for some reason you had started a discussion with her about literature or mathematics, you would never have known the extent of her brain power. It therefore was easy for Matilda to make friends with other children. All those in her class liked her. They knew, of course, that she was clever, because they had heard her being questioned by Miss Honey on the first day of term. They knew also that she was allowed to sit quietly with a book during lessons and not pay attention to the teacher. But the children of their age do not search deeply for reasons. They are far too wrapped up in their own small struggles to worry over much about what others do and why. Among Matilda's newfound friends was a girl called Lavender. Right from the first day of term, the two of them started wandering around together during the morning break and in the lunch hour. Lavender was exceptionally small for her age, a skinny little nymph with deep brown eyes and dark hair that was cut in a fringe across her forehead. Matilda liked her because she was gutsy and adventurous. She liked Matilda for exactly the same reasons. Before the first week of term was up, awesome tales about the headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, began to filter through to the newcomers. Matilda and Lavender, standing in a corner of the playground during morning break on the third day, were approached by a rugged 10-year-old boy with a boil on her nose, called Hortensia. "New scum, I suppose," Hortensia said to them, looking down from her great height. She was eating from an extra-large bag of potato crisps and digging the stuff out in handfuls. "Welcome to Borstal," she added, spraying bits of crisp out of her mouth like snowflakes. The two tiny ones, confronted by this giant, kept a watchful silence. "Have you met the Trunchbull yet?" Hortensia asked. "We've seen her at prayers," Lavender said, "but we haven't met her." "Oh, you've got a treat coming to you," Hortensia said. "She hates very small children. She therefore loathes the bottom class and everyone in it. She thinks 5-year-olds are grubs that haven't yet hatched out." In went another fistful of crisps, and when she spoke again, they sprayed out the crumbs. "If you survive your first year, you may just manage to live through the rest of your time here, but many don't survive. They get carried out on stretchers, screaming. I've seen it often." Hortensia paused to observe the effect these remarks were having on the two titchy ones. Not very much. They seemed pretty cool. So the large one decided to regale them with further information. "I suppose you know the Trunchbull has a lock-up cupboard in her private quarters called the Chokey. Have you heard about the Chokey?" Matilda and Lavender shook their heads and continued to gaze up at the giant. Being very small, they were inclined to mistrust any creature that was larger than they were, especially senior girls. "The Chokey," Hortensia went on, "is a very tall but narrow cupboard. The floor is only 10 inches square, so you can't sit down or squat in it. You have to stand. And 3 of the walls are made of cement with bits of broken glass sticking out all over. You can't lean against them. You have to stand more or less to attention all the time when you get locked up in there. It's terrible." "Can't you lean against the door?" Matilda asked. "Don't be daft," Hortensia said. "The door's got thousands of sharp, spiky nails sticking out of it. They've been hammered through from the outside, probably by the Trunchbull herself." "Have you ever been in there?" Lavender asked. "My first term. I was in there 6 times," Hortensia said. "Twice for a whole day and another time for 2 hours each. But 2 hours is quite bad enough. It's pitch dark and you have to stand up dead straight, and if you wobble you get spiked either by the glass on the walls or the nails on the door." "Why were you put in?" Matilda asked. "What had you done?" "The first time," Hortensia said, "I poured half a tin of golden syrup onto the seat of the chair the Trunchbull was going to sit on at prayers. It was wonderful. When she lowered herself into the chair, there was a loud squelching noise similar to that made by hippopotamus when lowering its foot into the mud on the banks of the Limpopo River. You're too small and stupid to have read the Just So stories, aren't you?" "I've read them," Matilda said. "You're a liar," Hortensia said amiably. "You can't even read yet, but no matter." So when the Trunchbull sat down on the golden syrup, the squelch was beautiful. And when she jumped up again, the chair sort of stuck to the seat of those awful green breeches she wears and came up with her for a few seconds, until the thick syrup slowly came unstuck. Then she clasped her hands to the seat of her breeches and both hands got covered in the muck. You should have heard her bellow. "How does she know it was you?" Lavender asked. "A little squirt called Ollie Bogwhistle sneaked on me," Hortensia said. "I knocked his front teeth out." "And the Trunchbull put you in the chokey for a whole day?" Matilda asked, gulping. "All day long," Hortensia said. "I was off my rocker when she let me out. I was babbling like an idiot." "What were the other things you did to get put in the chokey?" Lavender asked. "Oh, I can't remember them all now," Hortensia said. She spoke with the air of an old warrior who's been in so many battles that bravery has become commonplace. "It's all so long ago," she added, stuffing more crisps into her mouth. "Ah, yes, I can remember one. Here's what happened. I chose a time when I knew Trunchbull was out of the way teaching the sixth formers, put my hand and asked to go to the toilet. Instead of going there, I sneaked into Trunchbull's room, and after a speedy search I found the drawer where she keeps all her gym knickers. Go on, Matilda said, spellbound. What happened next? I sent away by post, you see, for this very powerful itching powder, Hortensia said. Cost 50p a packet and was called the Skin Scorcher. The label said it was made from powdered teeth of deadly snakes and was guaranteed to raise welts the size of walnuts on your skin. So I sprinkled this stuff inside every pair of knickers in the drawer, and then folded them all up again carefully. Hortensia paused to cram more crisps into her mouth. Did it work? Lavender asked. Well, Hortensia said. A few days later, during prayers, the Trunchbull suddenly started scratching herself like mad down below. Ha ha, I said to myself, here we go. She's changed for gym already. It was pretty wonderful to be sitting there watching it all and knowing that I was the only person in the whole school who realised exactly what was going on inside the Trunchbull's pants. And I felt safe too. I knew I couldn't be caught. Then the scratching got worse. She couldn't stop. She must have thought she had a wasp nest down there. And then, right in the middle of the Lord's Prayer, she leapt up and grabbed her bottom and rushed out of the room. Both Matilda and Lavender were enthralled. It was quite clear to them they were at this moment standing in the presence of a master. Here was someone who brought the art of skullduggery to the highest point of perfection, somebody, moreover, who was willing to risk life and limb in pursuit of her calling. They gazed at wonder at this goddess, and suddenly even the ball on her nose was no longer a blemish, but a badge of courage. How did she catch you that time? Lavender asked, breathless with wonder. She didn't, Hortensia said, but I got a day in the chokey just the same. Why? They both asked. The Trunchbull, Hortensia said, has a nasty habit of guessing. When she doesn't know who the culprit is, she makes a guess at it. And the trouble is, she's often right. I was the prime suspect this time because of the golden syrup job. Although I knew she didn't have any proof, nothing I said made any difference. I kept shouting, How could I have done it, Miss Trunchbull? I didn't even know where you kept any spare knickers at school. I don't even know what itching powder is. I've never heard of it. But the lying didn't help me in spite of the great performance I put on. The Trunchbull simply grabbed me by one ear, rushed me to the chokey on the double, threw me inside and locked the door. That was my second all-day stretch. It was an absolute torture. I was spiked and cut all over when I came out. It's like a war, Matilda said, overawed. You're darn right it's like a war, Hortensia cried, and the casualties are terrific. We are the Crusaders, the gallant army fighting for our lives with hardly any weapons at all, and the Trunchbull is the Prince of Darkness, the foul serpent, the fiery dragon, with all the weapons at her command. It's a tough life. We all try to support each other. You can rely on us, Lavender said, making her height of 3 foot 2 inches stretch as tall as possible. No, I can't, Hortensia said. You're only shrimps, but you never know. We may find a use for you one day in some undercover job. Tell us a little bit more about what she does, Matilda said. Please do. Well, I mustn't frighten you before you've been here a week, Hortensia said. You won't, Lavender said. We may be small, but we're quite tough. Listen to this, then, Hortensia said. Only yesterday the Trunchbull caught a boy called Julius Rotwinkle eating licorice all sorts during the scripture lesson. She simply picked him up by one arm and flung him clear out of the open classroom window. Our classroom was one floor up. We saw Julius Rotwinkle go sailing out over the garden like a frisbee, landing with a thump in the middle of the lettuces. Then the Trunchbull turned to us and said, From now on, anybody caught eating in class goes straight out of the window. Did this Julius Rotwinkle break any bones? Lavender asked. Only a few, Hortensia said. You've got to remember the Trunchbull once threw the hammer for Britain in the Olympics, so she's very proud of her right arm. What's throwing the hammer? Lavender asked. The hammer, Hortensia said, is actually a ruddy great cannonball on the end of a long bit of wire. The thrower whisks it round around his or her head faster and faster than lets it go. You have to be terrifically strong. The Trunchbull will throw anything around just to keep her arm in, especially children. Good heavens, Lavender said. I once heard her say, Hortensia went on, that a large boy is about the same weight as an Olympic hammer, and therefore he's very useful for practising with.